Money is a deadly issue. How winning millions destroyed a family's life. Welcome back to Will I Be Happy, where we dive into stories that are as wild as they come. I'm your narrator, and this time you need to buckle up, because this tale will take you on one heck of a ride that money can't buy. Chapter 1. The $1,000,000 Mistake. At just 19 years old, Mickey Goose was already familiar with the world's weight. Growing up in the small, forgotten town of Russellville, Arkansas, Mickey's life had been anything but easy. The Goose family lived in a rundown trailer on the edge of town, the kind of place where the walls were so thin you could hear the wind whistling through the gaps, and the roof leaked whenever it rained. The stench of mildew and despair clung to every corner of that place, a constant reminder of the life they were trapped in. Mickey dropped out of school at 16, not because he wanted to, but because he felt he had no choice. The bills piled up, the fridge was often empty, and his father's paycheck barely covered the basics. So Mickey took the first job he could find as a garbage man. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a paycheck, and in Russellville, that was more than what many people had. Every morning, before the sun even thought about rising, Mickey's alarm clock would buzz him awake. The room he shared, with the sound of crickets and the occasional passing car, was as unremarkable as the life he lived. A thin mattress on the floor, a small dresser with peeling paint, and a cracked mirror that had seen better days. But that mirror held his gaze every morning, reflecting the weariness in his young, handsome face, the kind that didn't belong to someone who had barely begun his adult life. Mickey's job was simple but grueling. He'd lace up his worn-out work boots, throw on a faded jacket that had seen too many winters, and trudge out to the garbage truck that waited like a faithful, albeit grim, companion. The truck's engine would roar to life as he climbed aboard, the smell of diesel mixing with the cold morning air. The routine was the same every day: ride through the sleepy streets, stop at each house, and haul other people's trash into the back of the truck. It was dirty, thankless work, and it wore on him more with each passing day. But something else gnawed at Mickey, something deeper than the physical exhaustion. It was the feeling that this was all his life would ever be, a never-ending cycle of garbage bags and cold mornings with no hope of anything better. He watched his peers, those who stayed in school, who had dreams of leaving Russellville behind, while he felt like a prisoner in his own life. The worst part was that he didn't know how to escape. There was one thing, though, that kept the fire of hope flickering in Mickey's heart: the lottery. Every week, after a long day of hauling trash, he'd walk into the corner store, the bell above the door jingling as he entered. The cashier, a bored teenager who couldn't care less about the customers, would nod as Mickey handed over his crumpled bills, purchasing his weekly lottery ticket. It was a fool's errand to most, but it was a lifeline to Mickey. He'd spend his nights lying awake, imagining what he'd do if he ever won. Buying a house far away from Russellville, taking care of his father, maybe even going back to school. It was a dream that kept him going, even on the darkest days. Then, one fateful Friday, everything changed. Mickey had just finished his shift, his muscles aching from the day's work. He could feel the dirt and sweat clinging to his skin as he walked into the gas station, but he barely noticed. His mind was on autopilot as he handed over the money for his usual lottery ticket. The cashier didn't even look up, but something in the air made Mickey pause. He couldn't explain it, but it felt like the universe was holding its breath. That night, Mickey sat on his tattered couch, the fabric worn thin in places from years of use. The small TV in the corner of the room flickered with the nightly news, the anchor droning on about things that seemed a world away from Mickey's reality. But then, the lottery numbers were announced. Mickey held his breath, the ticket crumpled in his hand, as he watched the screen. The first number matched, then the second, the third. Mickey's heart began to pound in his chest, each beat louder than the last. By the time the final number was called, his hands shook so badly he could barely hold on to the ticket. He had won $15 million. For a moment, time stood still. Mickey sat there, staring at the ticket, unable to believe what he saw. The numbers were correct. The money was real. He was a millionaire. Mickey didn't know it then, but that ticket wasn't just a gateway to wealth. It was a Pandora's box, one that would unleash a series of events far beyond his control. Will he spend his money wisely, or lose it all? Make sure you stick around and hit that subscribe button. Mickey's story is just getting started, and you wouldn't want to miss what's coming next.